So, yeah, the... Alright, okay, so traditional Scrutonian, modern Scrutonian, both are basically the same thing, except traditional Scrutonia is written on palm, and modern Scrutonian is written on paper and has more Capstonian words. So it eventually developed into modern Scrutonian. And so which is written on paper. And so Colorea developed into Cochranian, and Cochranian still exists today, and a sub-dialect. You could call it a dialect, but it's an entirely different language of itself. Still similar. It's like French to Italian. So, Capstonian, which contributed to modern Scrutonian. And Colorea, written in stone. Cochranian is written in paper, but since Capstonian kind of already originated from Colorea, a very traditional, you could still write in stone, and since there was a lot of stone in Capstone, how it's got its names, a bunch of stone, Capstonian is still written in stone, like its grandparent language, Colorea. So what do all of... Oh, and then there are the dialects of Scrutonian, Watergatian, and Atlantean. Watergatian is written in wood, and Atlantean is written in paper. So, what do all of these do? Oh wait, sorry, another thing. Atlantean is also derived from Russian, and Watergatian is derived from Italian. So all of these intermingle with each other and create new languages, and so it's just a web of different languages that are all kind of related to each other. And so what does this do? Why is this important to know what these languages are made out of, or what they use to write? Well, because if we just erase my work, I'll show you. Madagascarian, like I said before, it's written very curly letters. Much like because it's written in palm, and because palm is leaf, and not to rip the leaf, you'd have to write curly. Straight lines would rip the leaf. Now let's go down the line to the three child languages to Madagascarian, Fros, Batari, or Scrutonian, and Groon. So Groon is very similar to Madagascarian. Same shape. It's basically same language, just more developed and more modern, basically. And so Scrutonian, similar, but different, much like Groon. And Fros is here we get interesting, because they wrote in wax. They harvested wax from bees, and they wrote like the Greeks. They wrote in wax. And so that's where you get sharp angular letters, much to the contrary to Madagascarian, which is very interesting because the two are very intertwined. Same language spoken, very different language when written. So it looks more like, not very like Watergadian. Watergadian also written very sharp angular letters, because written in wood, you know, when you're carving in wood, you have to have it straight. You can't have very curly letters. You can't have curly letters at all. And so it was just a set of runes with very straight letters, like that. And so, let's go down the line. Traditional Scrutonian, very similar, just the language is kind of different, and the letters are shifted a little bit. And here's the rift. Traditional Scrutonian and modern Scrutonian. Here's the rift. It's papered, and also the introduction of the Capstonian alphabet. Not the Capstonian alphabet itself, but an alphabet mixed between the curly letters of... It's a rune alphabet, basically, now, instead of just how Madagascarian was before. Scrutonian is, like that. You know, it's kind of a mix between... It's not as curly and as like that, like how Madagascarian is, but it's more, has, you know, couple words and a couple of writing, and the writing style similar to Capstonian, which, except, you know, Scrutonian written in paper. Now, let's talk about the dialects. Atlantean, very similar to Russian, because of the Russian immigration to that area of Scrutonia, Atlantis. It's created its own dialect. And same for Watergate with Italians. So, Italian, it's based off of words in Italian, made into Scrutonian. Like, see, but it's also written in wood, and that's the interesting thing. It's very similar to Fros, except not at all, because Fros is more of a rune language like Scrutonian. However, Scrutonian is an alphabet language. But sorry, not Scrutonian, Watergadian, I meant. So what this says is ar nachrist unamertoliach. So, and then it says anarda alenostenach. So, well, yeah, that's the thing. It sounds kind of like Italian, more like Arabic, kind of. It's strange. Say sentence that would say Allora gros amerdiano limur alla harnash in bur amar anash dernacher. El aliorno weriama. And also the language. So let me go through Madagascarian is achnar ach kechumwer boyish amor balabur ashtanya. Bur achurdur ashdanachert asht alachert. Very in the throat. Deep in the throat, as almost it's strange. Grun, similar. Once again, Frost, very similar. Traditional Scrutonian, very similar to. Modern day Scrutonia is more Achan dur ashtihdest avenashuben virla arnashach. Arnachach ich achenasta. And so, the way that Scrutonia is written, is different, of course, than most languages, and it's kind of a mix of everything. Then there's Atlantean, which I don't speak Atlantean, so I don't have it off the top of my head, but I do speak Watergatian, and it's Arnash amerelieto akradubur amer anashtanakrada beram para leberutut ekust amaharnasht aman impula mantiar abalur asht amargechenar el ormopal ormaist ardogusta emberdo pustel urdu porca Egen erlushachardach. Erayur aramash ashtinjar. Burd emayetur liberalia. El urdumal elucal ushtiampo. Ikurd akastan tolo akas aparlona. Perlo pastal penle kurbam pesta. Coloria is very similar to German for some reason. I don't know why. Albast ama ist ahigen duben alve destudan duschveda vitanein. Vidunaim balajtal alori. And that translated into Capstonian too, where it's Alboast. Oh, sorry. No, that's Watergate. Dust einer Stut einer Einbetub. Bist du nicht weiß Wadenhut eine Dusfenest. Itana Turen eira Ukeschwad Bivenesh da Vasta. And then, yeah, So those are the languages of the area of Scrutonia, and that concludes our language segment. And now we're going into the history of modern day Scrutonia, the wars and all that. Let's see. The wars, very interesting. The war between Capstone. Okay, so the Scrutonian people fell under the Capstonian Empire. They fell to them, and they were enslaved, basically. Like the Israelites in Egypt. They were enslaved and put to work, and worked for the Grand Vizier of Capstone. And so, eventually they rebelled against Capstone, and the war was bloody. It was brutal. And this is where Emperor Liam and also Emperor Logan came into power. They started this revolution. They're the revolutionaries that founded the country of Scrutonia. Before, it was just a loose people that followed the similar religion of Scrutonian Orthodoxy. A loose people, loose religion, not anything official. And so they were, subjugated and enslaved by the Capstonians. So eventually, Liam and Logan founded Scrutonia, and they became revolutionaries and forever have our thanks. And so, after that was a time of prosperity. Scrutonia was a new nation, and not much is known about this era, but there are a few who can recall. Not me, I'm too young. But, Scrutonia has lots to thank for this era. It created Fort Scrutus. It created what would become Watergate. It created Fort Scroots. It created the entire, every city, everything was built in this era. It was the great building period, and it nurtured the seeds for an empire. Next is the First Empire period. The First Empire period came as when Watergate was founded. Watergate before was Fort Loch Ness. It was just a small fortress on the border of Scrutonia. And so when an Italian living in Cochrane's moved or became allies with Scrutonians, and became a Scrutonian. He assimilated he founded Watergate. And so with this, he also gave the idea for an empire that reached into the Watergate, an empire that reached into more lands, into the Greenbelt. This is where expeditions to the Greenbelt started to kick off during the Empire period. But the Empire period wouldn't last long. They had an empire with a bunch of kingdoms, or the First Empire period wouldn't last long. And eventually, the empire fell. It was destroyed by the first sacking of Fort Scrutus by the Tods. This destroyed Fort Scrutus, leaving the government in shatters. It was shattered. And so a kingdom was established after that, with kings and dukes. And so more wars with the toddlers surpassed, and during this time period, the Orthodox Catholic Church of Scrutonia was established, the Church of Scrutonia, by Bishop Rocco, was our first official bishop. He did not handle the church very well. He was just a mere bishop that tried to, extend the borders of the Catholic Church into Scrutonia. And so it didn't work out. And eventually, the current patriarch, me, became patriarch and installed more Orthodox and more traditional Catholic institutions into the Church of Scrutonia, and established, many of the churches. Before, it was just the Cathedral San Agnello di Napoli in Watergate, and eventually that was destroyed by an attack on Watergate. Because at this time, Watergate was on the border of Scrutonia. Watergate right now is straight in the middle of it. It's square in the middle. Scrutonia has developed way beyond its borders that it was before. And so then the new cathedral was built as St. Scrutus of the Forest Cathedral. But that one, it lasted for a long time, and this is where that is destroyed, however. It was eventually completely destroyed. It was now completely destroyed by another attack, and went into disarray. However, it was fixed up and rebuilt, but is now merely not as powerful as it was before. And so now, comes the expansion of the Church of Scrutonia. The Cathedral of the Holy Texts was built, and it housed the Holy Texts, which were found. Well, actually, no, this will come later. Never mind. Yeah, so the Kingdom period came, and it was a time of prosperity until another attack from the toddlers, and people started wanting democracy. Democracy is what people wanted, and so a republic was formed. However, out of this republic, a new Scrutonian Nationalist Party was created. From this Nationalist Party, Scrutonia became a dictatorship, basically. The president had a lot of power, too much power. And so, after that was the Great Death. The president resigned, leading way for a new president. However, that wouldn't last very long. It would eventually become basically ruins. Scrutonia was left in ruins, and the people there scattered. And this is when the Kokari came to power, they started, you know, emerging out of the forest because the Kakari came into this very suddenly. You know, they were established, and had a similar story to Scrutonian and the Scrutonians. So they were subjugated and enslaved by the Capstones. However, they did not have the success of Scrutonia until the fall of the Scrutonian Republic. Here's when they encroached into our territory and started forming an empire. This empire eventually disevolved, and there was a time of darkness for a long time, and the effects of this darkness would be felt. The Great Death, it was called. There were attempts to rebuild Scrutonia. However, those attempts failed until recently, where the Second Empire period came into fact. The empire was now rebuilt. People started coming back to Scrutonia, and a peace was arriving. Peace became, you know, there were wars with the toddlers, yes, but these wars weren't major. And these wars okay, so the empire, it was now independent. And it was now powerful. And so what this did to it was be able to expand even into the Green Belt. Everything was rebuilt. The Cathedral of the Holy Texts was built during this time, and also the then Cathedral of Holy Monuments. And so these two, and Bishop Alexander the second, Bishop Alexander Antonov, became another bishop, in addition to the Bishop Watergate, also known as the Patriarch, Alexander Klima. And so, however, an attack on the Cathedral of the Holy Monuments made it less holy. The monuments were destroyed, and so it's now just a lowly church, and San Marcos was built. And another attack on the Cathedral of the Holy Texts was made, and it was completely destroyed, and so it was rebuilt close to the place where it was before, but in another place. And so there's also an expedition into the Greenbelt to Fort Greene, on the River Green, close to the River of the Golden Dragonfly, and here we saw San Pietro's a mission colony. But this mission, we haven't heard from it in a while, and we don't know if it's still up and running. It might have been destroyed because it flooded a while ago, but, you know, it survived. And so we look at the history of Scrutonia and of its people, and we look at St. Scrutus and of the revolutionaries, Liam and Logan, and, you know, the great general and now Emperor Alexander Antonov, and we think, what a beautiful empire. However, this empire may not last for very long, unfortunately. The Kakari have declared their independence and are ready for war. And we must be ready for this war. We must stand guard, and my hopes is that every Scrutonian out there be careful, and may the Lord be with you. This was Father Alexander Klimo. With Scrutonian History 101. And I'd like to thank you for listening.